Morning, it's Roger here from Grub Street in exile from a very sunny southern Sweden, and I'm going to read this morning's blog. It's May 18th, 2024. There is thy gold worse poison to men's souls, more murder in this loathsome world than these poor Romeo and Juliet. Be not subject to a beast. And what a beast art thou already, that seest not in translation. William Shakespeare, Timon of Athens.
Moses went to the mountain, and God spoke unto him.
Moses, this is the Lord thy God, commanding you to obey my law. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, I hear you. A deaf man could hear you.
What?
Nothing, finished, forget it. Oh, Lord, why have you chosen me? What would you have me do for you?
I shall give you my laws, and you shall take them unto the people.
Yes, Lord! Lord, I shall give these laws unto thy people. Hear me! Oh, hear me! All pay heed! The Lord Jehovah, has given unto you these 15, 10 commandments for all to obey.
Jesus and economic life. The Roman Empire. The Sadducees and the priestly families that collaborated with the Romans were rewarded with large land holdings. Many accumulated large blocks of land. The people who had previously owned them were turned into tenant farmers who had to hand over at least half of their crops to their land. The empire imposed exorbitant taxes on ordinary people. Most families in taxes could not be paid, their property would be confiscated. The tax collectors got rich and the rest became tenant farmers or day laborers. Jesus saw the tax collectors as sick, Luke 5:31. For ordinary people, storing up wealth was impossible. If the Roman soldiers found coins or grain hidden in a house, they would smash the house. Debt was used to impoverish people and to steal their land. A person who was poor would be lent money, rates 50%, using their land as security. When they were unable to pay the interest or repay the loan, the interest would be added to the loan. In a few years, a small loan could grow to be worth more than the land given as security. The lender would demand the land to settle the debt. Herod built a Greek-style temple in Jerusalem. His son Antipas built the new Roman cities of Deopolis and Tiberias. The governor of Judea people had to pay tribute. People were hungry all the time. During those days, another large crowd gathered. Had nothing to eat. Jesus took his disciples to him and said, I have compassion for these people and have nothing to eat. If I send them home hungry, they will collapse on the way. Mark 8:1-3. 1. The state of people's health was so bad that going without food was debilitating. 2. By Jesus' time, most families in Israel had no land. Powerful families and moneylenders. Tax collectors and soldiers would grab most of the crops that were grown and most money that was earned. The people were left with very little to live on. Most people were hungry most of the time. Many would have to find someone as a day laborer to buy their food for the day. That is why Jesus knew the people had followed him around the lake to listen to his teaching all day would be hungry. If they had not worked, they would have no food and not be able to buy any. For the people of Israel, the Roman Empire was a terrible place to live. Land was concentrated in the hands of a few. Capital was no longer distributed evenly. The people did not have money to lend to others because all surpluses were taken by the Romans and the temple system. Life was brutal We're looking for a Messiah who would break the shackles of Rome.
And the people sinned a great sin, for they had made them a god of gold. And they bore him upon their shoulders, and rejoiced, saying, This be our God, O Israel.
Are you mourners of Moses afraid to face the new god of gold?
They were as children who had lost their faith. They were perverse and crooked, and rebellious against God. They did eat the bread of wickedness, and drank the wine of violence. And they did evil in the eyes of the Lord. And the people cried, The graven image hath brought us joy. And they worshipped the golden calf, and sacrificed unto it.
Here is your sacrifice.
A priori, I would propose this title: Gold is Money, J.P. Morgan Discuss. Alexander Del Mar wrote, as a rule, political economists do not take the trouble to study the history of money. It is much easier to imagine it and to deduce the principles of this imaginary knowledge. That this tendency has continued up to the present is confirmed by the self-admitted methods of Ludwig von Mises, who in the Theory of Money and Credit, one of the Bibles of the Austrian School of Economics, wrote, the proof of a theory is in its reasoning. Benjamin Franklin's support of paper money. Ben Franklin, a scientist, inventor, printer, and soon-to-be statesman, had high powers of observation and reasoning. Ben Franklin helped rescue Pennsylvania from by issuing colonial paper currency. His 1729 essay explained why. 200 years later, Austrian economist Ludwig von Mises impudently charged his motive as was profit from the printing of the money, but the Austrians are for the most part the difference between money and wealth. The historic collapse of the gold-silver ratio. The Great Depression served up another lesson in the monetary theories of Adam Smith, David Ricardo, Karl Marx, and of von Mises and the Austrians, all of which assert a commodity or quasi-commodity nature of money, are refuted by the reality of the silver collapse. This was the second great collapse of the ratio. The first occurred from the 1870s. Zalenga. Silver had dropped from $1.38 per ounce in 1919 to 44 cents an ounce in 1932, down 75%. Since at that time gold was still $20.67 per ounce, this meant that the ratio was at 47-1 instead of the old 16-1. The reason for the ratio collapse was that gold's value was still protected by law. It demonstrated that legal forces, not market or economic forces, determine the value of the precious metals. This is a crucial concept to grasp. The sanction of the law, and the earlier the sanctification of the temple, was still valid for commodity gold, but had been withdrawn from commodity silver. The law is what determined the ratio. The sanction of the law is what determined the value of the precious metals as money. Thing, William Blake. William Blake's poem, Jerusalem, delves into the themes of conflict, spirituality, and the enduring impact of violence. Through vivid imagery and thought-provoking symbolism, the poem challenges us to reflect on human nature and the pursuit of peace amidst societal changes. Blake's words serve as a timeless reminder not to worship false idols, I would add. So this is a couple of stanzas from Plate 11, The Emanation of the Great Albion, Jerusalem. What are those golden builders doing? Where was the burying place of soft Athens, near Tiburn's fatal tree? Is that mild Zion's hills' most ancient promontory? Near mournful, ever weeping Paddington, pity and compassion. Lo, the stones of pity and the bricks wrought affections, enamelled with love and kindness, and the tiles engraven gold. Labour of merciful hands, the beams and rafters are forgiveness, the mortar and cement of the work, tears of honesty, the nails and the screws of iron braces are well-wrought blandishments. And well-contrived words, firm, fixing, never forgotten, always comforting the remembrance, the floors, humility, the ceilings, the hearth's thanksgiving. Prepare the furniture, O Lambeth, in thy pity. The curtains, woven tears and sighs, wrought into lovely forms. For comfort, there the secret furniture of Jerusalem's chambrels wrought. Lambeth, the bride, the Lamb's wife, loveth thee. Thou art one with her, and knowest not of self in thy supreme joy. Go on, builders in hope. Without the gate of loss among the garden high above there cast its pearls to our weeds. Alexander de Moore, the preface to Roman and Muslim monies. The author concluded a former work on money in these words: that which has engaged the attention without harmonizing the convictions of such masterminds as Aristotle, Plato, Tycho Brahe, Copernicus, Locke, Newton, Smith, Bastiat, and Mill, is surely a study which none can afford to approach with rashness. Money is perhaps the mightiest engine to which man can lend an intelligence guidance. Unheard, unfelt, unseen, it has the power to so distribute the burdens, gratifications, and opportunities of life that each individual shall enjoy that share of them to which his merits or good fortune may fairly entitle him, or contrariwise to dispense them with so partial a hand as to violate every principle of justice and to perpetuate a succession of social slaveries to the end of time. I begin the present work in the same spirit with which I closed the former one, that is to say, without bias concerning any system of money, and only anxious to examine and profit by the experience of the past. These principles of money, namely that money is a measure and must be of necessity an institute of law, that the unit of money is all money within a given legal jurisdiction, that the practical essence of money is limitation, and that coins and notes alike are symbols of money, are fully discussed and illustrated in my Science of Money. So that's Delmar's Science of Money, and that's sort of brought up to date and restated by Zarlenga in the Lost Science of Money. Ezra Pound, ABC of Economics, Faber and Faber. The aim of this brochure is to express the fundamentals of economy so simply people of different economic schools and factions will be able to understand each other when they discuss them. After about 40 pages, I shall not descend, but I shall certainly go down into repetitions and restatements in the hope of reaching this clarity and simplicity. Part 1, Chapter 1. I shall have no peace until I get the subject off my chest. And there is no other way of protecting myself against charges of unsystematized, uncorrelated thought dilettantism, idle eclecticism, etc., than to write a brief formal treatise, 1. Disassociations or preliminary clearance of the ground. I beg the reader not to seek implications. When I express a belief, I will say so. When I am trying to prove something, I will say so. At the start, I'm attempting merely to get the reader to distinguish between certain things for the sake of his own mental clarity. He attempts to solve anything. I shall use the term property as distinct from the term capital. Capital, for the duration of this treatise, implies a sort of claim on others, or a sort of right to make others work. Property does not. For example, my bust by Gaudier is my property. Nobody's expected to do anything about it. My bond of the Exxon Railroad is capital. Somebody is supposed to earn at least $60 a year and pay it to me. I own such a bond. Therefore, it would be possible to attack the rights or privileges of capital without attacking the rights or privileges of property. Once again, please do not imply. Please do not think I mean one whit more than what I have written. When I want to mean something further, I will say it. Dissociation 2. Overproduction did not begin with the industrial system. Nature habitually overproduces. Chestnuts go to waste on the mounting side, and it has never yet caused a world crisis. Chapter 2. Engineers and wise men tell us that the question of production is solved. The world's producing plant can produce everything the world needs. There is not a faintest reason to doubt this. As mechanical efficiency increases, the above-mentioned production will require progressively less human time and effort. Sane economy demands that this effort should be, for various reasons, apportioned to a very considerable number of people. This is not absolutely necessary, but it is advisable. It is not necessary since a few million slaves or temperamentally busy human beings could undoubtedly do the whole work for the lot of us. They did it for the Roman Empire, and nobody objects to the occasional slave. Objections to slavery are in part ideal and sentimental. Openly avowed slavery has nevertheless gone out of fashion. It is pure dogma to assert that an adult human being should be ready to do a reasonable amount of work for his king. It's imperative trying to sponge on others and who is unwilling to do anything whatever conducive to the general comfort or to the maintenance of civilization is a mere skunk, and that he ultimately becomes a blasted bore, not only to others but to his own blasted self. I assert a simple dogma. Man should have some sense of responsibility to the human congeries. As a matter of observation, very few men have any such sense. At least a few men have such a sense. Democracy implies that the man must take the responsibility for choosing his rulers and for the maintenance of his own rights against the possible and probable encroachments of the government, which he has sanctioned to act for him in public matters. These encroachments, insofar as they were political, insofar as they were special privileges handed down from medieval chaos and feudal arrangements, have been from time to time more or less put in order. Jefferson and John Adams observed that in days very few men had thought about government. There were very few writers on government. The study of economics is a later arrival, and economic some economic problems could perhaps be considered via political analogy, but a great number cannot. Probably the only economic problem needing emergency solution in our time is the problem of distribution. There are enough goods. There is superabundant capacity to produce goods in superabundance. Why should anyone starve? That is the crude and rhetorical question. It is much our question as Hamlet's melancholy was the problem of the Renaissance dyspeptic. And the answer is that nobody should. The The science or study of economics is intended to make sure no one does. There is enough. How are you going to get it from it can be to where it is not and is needed? I spare the reader the old history of barter, etc. Apples for rabbits, slips of paper from the owner ordering his servants to give to the bearer 2 barrels of beer, generalized tokens of gold, leather, paper inscribed with a value, as of 16 ounces of copper, metal by weight, checks with fantastic figures, all serve or have served to shift wealth, wheat and beef from one place to another, or to move cloth from Flanders to Italy. Who is to have these tokens? Obviously, certain men deserve well of humanity or of other limited numbers of men. Those who grow wheat, those who make cloth and harness, those who carry these things from where they are in superfluity to where they are needed by push carts and airplanes, etc. And also those who know where things are, who discover new and easier means of getting them out. Coal from the earth, energy from an explosion of gasoline, makers, transporters, facilitators, and those who contribute to their pleasure or comfort. It pleases them favour, usually children, aged parents who have earned their affection, all of which would seem perfectly simple and idyllic. But then we come to the jam. Some of these people who work or who could and would work are left without paper tokens. Someone else has got all the tokens, or someone else has done all the work needed. Curiously enough, despite the long howls of those who used to complain about being oppressed and overworked, the last thing human beings appear to wish to share is work. The last thing the exploiters want to let their divide is labour. It is nevertheless undeniable that if no one were allowed to work this year, 1933, more than 5 hours a day, there would be hardly anyone out of a job and no family without paper tokens potent enough to permit them to never yet seen a valid one, though I have seen some very complicated explanations. I would be willing to set out a simple dogma that the shortening of the working day, day of paid labour, is the first clean cut to be made. I admit it is not the whole answer, but it would go a long way to keep part of the population of any country whatsoever, and thereby to keep goods, necessities, luxuries, comforts distributed and in circulation. Is not the whole answer, not the whole answer to the present emergency, nor does it constitute the whole science of economics. I'll do a full reading of that, but you'll find that on the Internet Archive at the link in the blog. What I'll also add into this blog is I'm going to do this David Faraday positive money quiz, which I put into this quiz maker app. It's limited to 25 people doing it, and it's $30 a month, which I just don't think is worth. The quiz itself makes a point. And then the next link that I have here is to The Best Democracy Money Can Buy by Greg Palast. And that's on the Going Direct Paradigm Mind Map, which has various branches, thoughts, consequences. It's like a big algorithm of that initial question. Gold is money. So then we come to this. I blogged this in June 2019. It's a comment or article by Keith Gardner, which I got off the Wayback Machine. That's the project for the New American Century. Alex Jones and Ron Paul partner for a new Pearl Harbor. Just some background on that. Alex Jones is obviously reviled for this legal case against him for the Sandy Hook shootings. Alex Jones has been a fixture of the internet even since his widespread non-person. This was written in 2012. I don't know what Alex Jones' current position is on money creation. I do know that his current show has lots of traders selling gold. Gold as part of the monetary mix, I have no objections to. It should always and everywhere be in a bimetallic system. If you have gold, you must have silver. That's what Delmar's talking about, the ratio further up. Outside of that, Bernard Laitier proposed a currency based on a basket of commodities, which he called the Terra, T-E-R-A-R, or T-E-R-R-A. And this idea that a single source of wealth being gold standard, which is deflationary, which is bad for, that's kind of counterintuitive, but deflation is the preferred economic outcome of bankers. There's someone called Elizabeth Least, who made a speech in the 1870s about banks keeping the monetary specie in supply, and the price going down, etc. You'll find that elsewhere on different blogs that I've done over the years. So just with that ride up 2012, which states very, very well, I think, of the personalities who are in the past promoted either mistakenly or with some obscure or occulted reason, or etc. Alex Jones and Ron Paul know a lot about the New World Order and are right about a lot of things. However, they are also working on the New World Order's new economic Pearl Harbor, which will enslave the productive serfs to the idle aristocrats and international bankers. They want total economic enslavement through monetary usury. They want the serfs to love their enslavement and call it freedom. They want the serfs to make tribute payments to the non-productive aristocrats on increasing national debt in the increasing value of gold made legal tender by the New World Order. Alex Jones and Ron Paul promote the communism for the rich, known as feudalism. Alex Jones revealed the new Pearl Harbor document from the Project for the New American Century, PNAC, P-N-A-C, called Rebuilding America's Defenses as part of the New World Order's agenda. Alex Jones fails to mention another document written by PNAC board member Louis Lerman, called Money and the Coming World Order, the Creation of International Monetary Order. It's hosted on a website called Gold for the Lerman Institute. The title is quite revealing, that Louis Lerman wants a new world order based on the gold standard. According to Louis Lerman, we'll be on the new world order's gold standard in 5 years. Louis Lerman also partnered with Ron Paul to write the case for gold. Alex Jones is a dedicated promoter of Ron Paul and a return to the gold standard. Alex Jones and Ron Paul also both have significant investments in gold, with the producer of the Alex Jones show being a gold trader. It seems that Alex Jones knows a lot about the endgame of the New World Order and the blueprint for global enslavement. What Alex Jones does not tell you is that the gold standard is a part of the endgame and blueprint for global enslavement, and that Ron Paul and Alex Jones are heavily invested into it, since they actively promote a gold standard. They're not merely invested in gold just because they fear a new world gold standard. They are complicit in that agenda. But a quasi gold standard would take. I believe that there's a carbon-based currency, I call it the carbon currency endgame, and that the carbon will be based upon a carbon price for good carbon, and the good carbon will become analogous to gold in a bimetallic system. And carbon, which is the hydrocarbons, the ratio between them is 16 to 1. Now, The idea of a gold standard, I think, is a very real possibility. Always remembering John Maynard Keynes called the gold standard barbarous, a barbarous anachronism, I think he called it. Now, keeping the central bank in control through central bank digital currencies, and people call Bitcoin, for instance, digital gold. It doesn't give you the whole picture of what an economy with just a money as a standard value in the hands of very few people, what the outcome of that is. And the outcome of that is serfdom, it is slavery. And so that's why this blog, this is why Del Mar goes back in history, as he explained. Why Zellenga also does that. So Ron Paul also gave public support for globalization and a non-world currency, gold in the public record. There's nothing to fear from globalism, free trade and a single worldwide currency. The effort in recent decades to unify governments of world trade through the UN, IMF, World Bank, WTO, ICC, and OECD, and the Bank of International Settlements can never substitute for a peaceful world based on true free trade, freedom of movement, a single but sound market currency, and voluntary contracts with private property rights. The ultimate solution will only come with the rejection of fiat money worldwide and a restoration of commodity money. Commodity money, if voluntarily and universally accepted, could give us a single world currency requiring no money managers, no manipulators, orchestrating a man-made business cycle with rampant price inflation. Ron Paul, Congressional Record, March 13th, 2001. If you search for my blog, you'll find a blog called Cabot Against Gold. And he's a guy contemporaneous with people like Paine, Thomas Paine, etc. Paine's contemporary with William Blake. This is a big subject down the ages, and it's not a subject which is well dealt with. And I think there's a good reason for that, because, as Del Mar says, it's not seen or heard, yet it has such profound effects. So, carrying on with Keith Gardner's thing here, Ludwig von Mises and the Austrian School of Economics was also funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, the same people who created the United Nations, World Bank, and Standard Oil, ExxonMobil, the Federal Reserve, and Chase Bank, and the same people behind the eugenics program in America. Many readers may be surprised to learn the extent to which the Graduate Institute and then Mises himself, in the years immediately after he came to the United States, were kept afloat financially through generous grants. In fact, shares of appointment as a visiting professor in the Graduate School of Business Administration at New York University in 1945. He was almost totally dependent on annual research grants from the Rockefeller Foundation, richly enabling the life and works of Ludwig von Mises. It is also known that Peter Thiel is a Bilderberger and Ron Paul's biggest contributor. Real libertarians are starting to ask, who is Peter Thiel? And I would add to that, what is Palantir? So, again, on this theme, quoting Leon Trotsky from A Revolution Betrayed rather, private capital, usurious, commercial and industrial, these functions of money, however bound up as they are with exploitation, are not liquidated, but in a modified form are transferred to the state, the universal merchant, creditor and industrialist. Now, that was Leon Trotsky said that. Soviet times, the Soviets did have And the history of that is quite well documented. If you dig around the internet, you'll find it. So, and in that blog, I link to Theory and Practice of Oligarchical Collectivism, which is a part of George Orwell's novel 1984. A heavy black volume, amateurishly bound, with no name or title on the cover. The print also looked slightly irregular. The pages were worn at the edges and fell apart easily, as though the book had passed through many hands. The inscription on the title page ran, "The Theory and Practice of Oligarchical Collectivism" by Emmanuel Goldstein. The term oligarchical collectivism refers not only to the ideology of the party socialism, but also to the ideologies of the other two states, neo-Bolshevism in Eurasia, in East Asia, death worship or obliteration of self. Winston Reed's two long experts establishing how the three totalitarian superstates, Oceania, East Asia and Eurasia, emerged from a global war, thus connecting the past and the present, and explains the basic political philosophy of the totalitarianism that derived from the authoritarian political tendencies manifested in the 20th century. That the three opposing ideologies are functionally identical is central to the revelations of the book. And there's that quote again from Trotsky.
Give me the eyes, but I was born just like yo. I feel like a walk out all the dirty shitty jobs. Everybody's got something to do with their time. I feel like a walk, I don't want to go home. I've got a lot to run through. I feel like a walk, I don't mean to go home. Just wants to shine your shows. Well, let me tell you about people. We laying down in the accolades. He wanna sell us some Lego. But we said, mister, you just got to wait. You got to wait. You got to wait. You got to wait. He wanna take us down to Sao Paulo. But we said, mister, we ain't got no words. I tried to make him laugh, he didn't get the joke. And then he said I wasn't right in my head. And then he made me, and then he made me, and then he made me feel, and then he made me feel like, and then he made me feel like, and then he made me feel like, you know I 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 feel like, wow. I feel like a wow. People give me the eyes, but I was born just like yo. I feel like a walk, I don't mean to no harm. Just don't ask me to shine your shows. Galaxy, Galagosh, I'm calling yo, Galagog, Galaxy, Galagosh, I'm coming. I'll call you if I want you.
That's the Stranglers there. So it's the monetary sovereignty, stupid. So where did the 10 Commandments come from? What are they? God gave his people the 10 Commandments in a section of the Bible called the Old Testament. At that time, a group of people led by the prophet Moses had just escaped slavery. When Moses prayed to God for help, God gave him the 10 Commandments, which we can still follow today. Number 1, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Exodus 23. God wants what is best for you. If you put something else before him in your life, it's hard for him to bless you. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Exodus 24. Anything you worship more than God is a graven image. Cars, clothes, sports, even our jobs are dangerous things to worship because they can go away, but God will never go away. And that's why it's best for us to only worship him. 3, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord God in vain. Exodus 27. This can mean using God's name like a swear word, or it can mean saying you are a Christian but not living or acting like Jesus would want you to act. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Exodus 28:10. Sunday or the Sabbath day is a day we can all go to church, worship God, and learn how to be better people and Christians. Keeping it holy means doing our best to remember him throughout the day. Honor thy father and thy mother. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet. There are a number of those. The existing legal system, monetary system, seems to be sort of flying in the face of. So this next section comes from what I read from earlier, which is called King Watch, and it's called the Jesus of the Economic Life. So the Torah provided a way for a community of people together in peace. It included crime, a system of justice and judges, a system of defense, and an economic system. It did not need a king or political power, which meant no taxation and no tribute. Jesus came to bring about the restoration of Israel. The renewal of Israel would be achieved through the renewal of life in villages and communities. Unrighteous wealth, odious debt. Jesus introduced the concept of unrighteous wealth. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling wealth with true riches, sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourselves that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will never fail, when no thief comes near and no moth destroys. So there's quite a lot of, I'm not going to read all of this. I'm just going to wrap up now with 2 things. Some more words from Ezra Pound, ABC of Economics. It may not be a matter of names. A free private company may administer a nation's creditors justly and with as little graft as influenced by cliques of friends and acquaintances. The economist is the man who knows what board of well-being of the nation. In other words, where and how it should allocate its certificates of work, further work to deliver such and such products. Now, on volition. It will be objected that I'm trying to base a system on will, not on intellect. That is the main reasons for my writing this treatise. The criminal classes have intellectual people without intellectual criminal ecology. No economic system is worth a hoot without goodwill. No intellectual system of economics will act on their understanding. People indifferent to the definition of liberty as le droit de faire tout ce qui ne nuit pas aux autres will not do anything about their economic knowledge, whatever knowledge. People with no sense of responsibility fall under despotism, and they deserve all the possible castigations and afflictations that the worst forms of despotism provide. No economic system affected interested, I should say, in economics as part of the problem. What does and what does not injure others? That the answer to this is probably identical with the answer to the most enlightened form of egotism does not affect the matter. No egoist has the energy to attain the maximum of enlightenment. And we'll just round off with Al Franken's Supply Side Jesus.
The Gospel of Supply Side Jesus. Pontius Pilate summons our hero. Bring me this king of the Jews that I might meet him, this supply side Jesus. Supply side Jesus arrives. So you are the supply side Jesus. What a magnificent robe you have. Because of this robe, 10 craftsmen were able to feed their families. The goldsmith who made the trim and the filigree was able to hire an apprentice because I paid him so handsomely. And what a beautiful haircut you have, supply side Jesus. The barber who gave me this haircut was able to hire a manicurist. She had been a prostitute, but because I needed a pedicure, she is now able to fulfill her true potential. Yes, the cuticles are absolutely perfect, but there are those in Jerusalem who are not happy with your radical new teaching, supply side Jesus. Watch yourself. Supply side Jesus leads his disciples past a leper colony on his way to the Sermon on the Mount.
Should you feed the lepers, supply side Jesus?
No, Thomas. That would just make them lazy. Then shouldn't you at least heal them, supply side Jesus? No, James. Leprosy is a matter of personal responsibility. If people knew I was healing the lepers, there would be no incentive to avoid leprosy. Supply side Jesus, I think I've got a great line for your Sermon on the Mount. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. For shame, Peter. That's class warfare. But it does give me an idea. It is easier for a rich man to enter heaven seated comfortably on the back of a camel than it is for a poor man to pass through the eye of a needle. If you are prosperous on earth, that means that God is rewarding your rugged individualism. If you are poor, it is a sign that God frowns on your reliance on handouts. The only way to gain entrance into God's kingdom of abundance is to show your faith by giving to him through his only Son, me, supply side Jesus. My disciples will now pass among you, and he who gives more than 1,000 shekels will become a supply side Jesus pioneer and have access to me at our annual Yom Kippur break the fast dinner.
The word of the Lord.
The Last Supper. This very night, one of you will betray me to pay off a gambling debt. No, said Simon the Canaanite. I don't believe it, said James the Greater. Not I, said Philip of Bethesda. Not us, said James the Lesser. Oh boy, thought William Bennett Iscariot. Supply side Jesus was arrested that very night and brought before Pontius Pilate. Supply side Jesus, the Pharisees are angry. They say you are cutting into their action. That's the marketplace of ideas, Pilate. But your ideas are misleading, and you are making the poor even poorer. What you say to that, supply side Jesus? Average income is going up, and social mobility within the Roman Empire is greater than ever. Look at me. I came from the humblest of roots, and yet now I am one of the richest men in all Judea. That's because you're a huckster, supply side Jesus. I sentence you to death by crucifixion. It was Passover custom to release a condemned prisoner. Pilate decided to let the people choose supply-side Jesus's fate. Who would you have me release? This man, supply-side Jesus, who claims to be your king and insists you stand on your own 2 feet? Or in the case of you lepers, your good foot and stump? Or this man, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, who also claims to be your king and preaches a gospel of compassion, generosity, and good works? 20 shekels for anyone who votes for me, supply-side Jesus said.
Give us supply-side Jesus!
The next day, supply-side Jesus passed by Calvary on his way out of town. Forgive them, Father. Supply-side Jesus knew just what to do. Romans! Tax cuts will double our revenues and ensure that the empire never declines or falls. And I will stop these environmentalists who claim that lead is poisoning our water system. And I will eliminate the threat from Mesopotamia once and for all by invading Iraq.
Right, so that's supply-side Jesus, and that's all I've got for you today. If you have been watching, I've been Roger Lewis at the Grub Street Exile. Thanks very much.